Today I want to explore the concept of affliction. To do this, I want you to ponder two questions I'm about to ask you. Are you an anxious person? Do you always feel as if you have to be doing something in order to be productive? Do you feel that your life is constantly in motion? Would you benefit from an off-ramp if one was afforded to you? In the context of getting all of your emotions and feelings in place so you didn't have to feel so regulated and at peace by simply managing the symptoms that you're experiencing. If you stepped to the head of the class and said yes to any of the questions which I have put forth today, you're not alone. According to my friends over at the Cleveland Clinic, it's estimated that approximately 11% of people in the United States every year experience a panic attack. And approximately 2 to 3% of people in the United States can actively be considered to have a panic disorder. If I've said anything today that resonates with you, then this podcast you should stick around and consume and put into practice. Because you see, my friend John Graham has been precisely in your shoes. He's experienced panic attacks to the point where he thought he was going to die. He's also experienced anxiety for decades, and now he's in a place where he wants to share his real and honest story in an attempt to help transcend it and move beyond the bubble of the conditioning. He's a 3-time memory champion and high-performance coach, showing others how to be released from panic attacks and chronic anxiety to ensure that the people that he helps can live a full, honest, and transparent life, free of panic, anxiety, and the worry of living up to something that you're not, and regaining control of every aspect of your life. This is a conversation that I'm excited to bring to all of you today. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, John, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to formally welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn about your battle with anxiety, my friend, and panic attacks, and how you came out the other side to be the best version of yourself. Great to see you on this Wednesday morning. And thank you so very much for being here.
It's my pleasure to share my story and pay it forward. So I'm excited to meet you more and have this conversation.
Yeah, life is all about paying it forward, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely, my friend. And I know that, my friend, your story starts by having debilitating panic attacks and anxiety attacks of your own, so much so that you thought at one point you were going to die from it, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about your journey and how it molded you into the person that you are today.
Yeah, I mean, we're jumping right in the deep end here. I at one point, my anxiety, and I think I had anxiety probably since I was 13 years old. I can trace it back now um, to when I was in eighth grade. I changed schools. I had a chest surgery. I wasn't able to carry more than 5 pounds to class. Um, Kids would look at me, like all the things, and I was very insecure. So I think it started then. I started just being hyper vigilant of things, thinking in worst case scenarios, always playing like the future in my mind and trying to plan ahead and protect myself from any grenades along the way, right? And it manifested into, at one point, um, very recently, to the point of panic attacks, like daily, like multiple daily panic attacks. And if you've never had panic attacks, it's like a surge of adrenaline goes through your veins, like through your body. This intense, like, and you feel like an impending doom. You feel like something really bad's going to happen. You can't explain it because physiologically you're in heightened alert. And a couple of the times, my arms would tighten up, like mimicking a heart attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. And a couple of times, actually, one time in particular, the left side of my face went completely numb. That's how intense these attacks are. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to drop dead. There were a couple of ER visits that I had. Luckily, it was just panic attacks, right? I quote unquote, because these are so incredibly intense and awful to experience. But luckily, nothing was physically wrong with me. But I had to figure out where this was coming from because clearly, I'm a 3-time U.S. memory champion. I've obsessed over the mind, most of my life. I thought the mind was the answer to optimize my mind for productivity, for peak performance, for everything in life. I thought it was a solution when in fact it was keeping me in anxiety and panic. And my story, yeah, it starts there on the deep end of panic, but I discovered, Kevin, that anxiety and panic shouldn't be labeled mental health. That's where we go wrong. That's like we try to treat it mentally with meditation, supplements, talk therapy, all the mind stuff. We try to treat it up here, but it's actually an emotional root issue. And so when I actually learned that and realized that, I was able to fully overcome it by treating it at the core and the root.
Yeah, and as you said that one of the things that drew me to your story, my friend, is that you say that one of the worst things that you hear people say is, I have to manage my panic attack and anxiety, my friend. So tell me about why it's important to really get out of that mindset of wanting to manage something in order to cope with it, because as I know it's something that you struggled with too. So tell me about it, buddy.
Well, yeah, I always thought managing it and coping with it, like just managing it to me means maintaining it, like keeping it at a level that's tolerable. And I thought, I just want to get rid of this for good. I don't want to take medication. I don't want to have to meditate for 30 minutes every day just to like subside it and then come back. Like I'm going deeper here. And I never agreed with that it was, like I had to take years of therapy for it. I always believed in my heart that I could overcome it. So I took a different route. And because I didn't agree with the mainstream route of maintaining it, maintaining it, managing it, which basically means to control it. Anxiety and panic is a control issue. Your mind is trying to control everything. So trying to solve it with more control isn't going to fully get to the root. And I said, I want to overcome it for good. I want this gone forever. And because I was asking those questions personally, how do I overcome it? What's the real root? I kept going. And I think if people knew, like I'm a testament to this, I completely overcame it, like for good, forever. Right. And maybe I shouldn't use the word forever, but like I spent 20 years with anxiety, up and down, up and down, up and down, mainly like trying all the mental routes and supplements and therapies and meditations. It didn't work. And then within 2 months of treating it emotionally, it was gone for good. And so to my challenge to everyone listening is, now that you have me as a example and knowing that it's possible, do you want to keep maintaining it, kicking the can down the road, or do you want to fully resolve it for good?
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I want to dive into the idea of emotional courage because you say really getting ahead of this is an emotional issue and an emotional response. So I'm curious to get your definition of emotional courage and what does that mean to you, my friend?
Yeah. I mean, courage to me means knowing that you're going to face fear or hardship, but still going forth. I think too many of us try to be mentally courageous, which is good. Um, and I certainly tried that route, but emotionally courageous means you're going to face the uncomfortable feelings of fear, of anxiety, of embarrassment, of all those things that we try to avoid in life. But here's the thing, Kevin, is once you fully process and experience those feelings, they release and they release for good because the root of anxiety and panic, the root of overwhelm, the root of procrastination, all of it's an emotional root issue. It's caused from suppressed emotions. We store suppressed emotions in our body throughout our life. They accumulate. Basically, everything, every moment of our life that we've ever like pushed away, that we haven't handled, all the embarrassments, the breakups, the betrayals, the intense moments, those, if we didn't fully process it in that moment, it's still inside of us now today. And so you can imagine all this accumulation causes all this suffering, mental and emotional. Being emotionally courageous means I know that I will experience pain to release this, but I need to process all these suppressed emotions so that they release for good and they're out and clear. And then I'm out on the other side.
And John, I'm curious to ask you about the idea of suppressed emotions and diving deeper into that. I'm really becoming vulnerable and realizing the need to really bring those suppressed emotions to the surface. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah. People think vulnerability, and especially men think vulnerability is weakness, you know, but really vulnerability is your capacity to speak the truth, right? The truth means the good, the bad, like all of it, the fullness, right? So handling and talking, you don't even need to talk about it. You need to just experience these suppressed emotions so that they release. And you mentioned something. You mentioned, letting them arise to the surface. Well, I can tell everyone here that we don't need to go looking for suppressed emotions. Like you can mentally dig and dig and dig, or every moment of the day that bothers you, like when someone cuts you off in traffic, when someone says a comment online, when there's a post from someone you don't like, when there's a political thing, whatever, any moment that bothers you, like even if something I said bothers you, that's a portal where a suppressed emotion is trying to come up. It's rising right now. And when you feel discomfort, not just anxiety, but embarrassment, anger, frustration, irritation, impatience, anything, something is coming up to be seen and experienced to process out. What do most of us do? Most of us tense up and hold it in. We literally hold it in because we tense it up. We won't let it out. So it stays in and we try to feel better. We try to, like, the moment we're frustrated or anxious, we try to escape that emotion. We try to, oh, I need to go work out, or I want to watch a motivational video because I don't like feeling this way, or whatever. You don't want to do that because escaping and bypassing that emotion only keeps it in and you're kicking the can down the road for later. So I hope me saying this to everyone makes them realize, I hope you catch what I'm really, really trying to say. What I'm really trying to say is we need to lean in to all those discomforting energies so that they release and process out for good, so they don't stay inside of us and keep building over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you this morning is because June is National Men's Mental Health Month, my friend, and I'm curious when we talk about emotions and really getting in touch with our emotions. I'm curious when we look at it from a mental health angle. How important do you think it is for men to really be in touch with the mental side of their health as well? What do you think is the importance of recognizing months like these, my friend?
Yeah, the mind is it's important. I wish it was labeled emotional health. Like that's my big thing because labeling it mental health makes people try to like solve it through their mind or they're hyper vigilant of their thoughts. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having a negative thought. I need to reframe it. It causes a lot of fear because everyone's mind, Kevin, everyone, you and me and everyone listening has a neurotic mind, right? There's all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of fears, all kinds of insane stuff going on. But the truth is, the only, I shouldn't say the only thing, but the main thing we need to realize about our mind is that we are not our mind. But so many of us are obsessed with our thoughts and who we are and our identity of the mind that we believe we are our thoughts and everything that comes through our mind. And so we suffer. What I want people to realize is your mind is a structure. It's an ego structure because basically everything you've learned and assimilated over the course of your life has built a belief structure, specifically the first 7 years of your life. The first 7 years of your life, your brain is a sponge. It's in a theta wave. So you're accepting everything your parents say, you're listening to society and community and teachers, and you're forming a structure. And those influences become the voice in your head of, oh, don't do that. Be careful, be careful. Oh, that's not going to work. You're doing it wrong, right? And it perpetuates your whole life. So I want people to realize we don't need to reframe our thoughts. We don't need to be afraid of our thoughts and always tweak them and push them away because that adds resistance. What we need to do is step more into our emotions, lean into the feeling, the sensations of our body and connect to those and release those instead of obsessing over what my mind is telling me at any moment.
Yeah, and just building on that, John, I'm curious to ask you, what does it mean to you to have an optimal mindset or maximize your ability to be in a positive mindset? What does that mean to you?
That's all the rage. Excuse me. That's all the rage of being a positive person, thinking positive thoughts, right? And that's, you need a positive mindset, but the way that people do it is forced, meaning we try to force our mind to believe certain things or think certain things, and that's control. We're literally battling our ego mind through force. No, I believe this. No, I'm grateful for that. No, I don't believe that. No, that's negative. I believe this about this person. You're trying to force it. And that amplifies the power of your mind, your ego, for more control. What we really need to do is experience, again, the suppressed energies, the emotions, because when we do that, we polarize positively. I know this sounds crazy, but think of your emotions like a negative charge. Like think of anything that bothers you as a negative charge in your body. If you experience that fully, process it out, it releases that negative charge. So that part of you that was negatively charged inside your body now is neutralized. And the more you neutralize all these suppressed energies and emotions, the more your mind will start to follow suit with your body. You won't be viscerally afraid and charged with everything emotionally, and your mind will follow suit. So the way that we positively polarize our mind isn't through forcing our mind to believe certain things. That's a slow, painful route. We need to do it through the emotional portals.
Yeah, and John, I'm curious to dive into your story, my friend. As you mentioned, you're a three-time U.S. Memory champion and a Grandmaster of Memory and an entrepreneur, my friend, and a high-performance coach. So I'm curious to dive into your background a little bit more and how you think you've evolved as a person over a span of time, my friend.
I mean, I started memory techniques 10 years ago. So I was not born with a photographic memory or a genius or anything like that, which, people kind of assume since I'm a memory champ. I read a book called Moonwalking with Einstein that started me on this journey. It basically showed me that ordinary people can learn mental techniques like visualization, story, places, connecting things to remember massive amounts of information. And so I lit up and I wanted to learn that route. I started competing in competitions all over the world. I won U.S. championships. I've been on TV shows. I was recently on the Superbrain TV show in China, which is 400 million people watch that show, right? Which is insane. And Kevin, along that journey, I faced intense pressure. Like from my first competition up until being in front of 400 million people, every time I performed for a championship, intense pressure and stress came up. So I had to learn more, not just the memory techniques and how to, you know, ace that in front of people, but I had to learn how to handle, and I shouldn't even use the word handle, how to perform under pressure, internal pressure, not just external. And that's the route that took me to learning that we need to lean into all this stuff, that we need to, like, instead of blocking all our distractions, which everyone's obsessed about, I don't block distractions. I allow them to wash over me. I actually train with massive amounts of distraction. I feel all the heart racing, all the adrenaline rushes when I'm training, when I'm performing, so that it can flow through me instead of resisting it and amplifying it. And so my journey of getting to the top of the memory world, I had to face a lot of inner demons and suppressed emotions to get to the top and to perform at my peak, to overcome the anxieties and the panics that were inhibiting me, literally like limiting me from expanding to my true potential.
Yeah, John, I'm curious, what kind of competitive advantages do you think arise from being a memory champion? What sort of state of prosperity does that put you in, my friend, in your opinion? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, having a trained mind and a memory gives you supreme confidence in situations to remember people and scenarios and things. Because a lot of people, like, you know, are very honest and they say, my memory is bad, you know. So just having confidence, like, even if memory isn't involved, I have a supreme confidence in my mind and my abilities because I've achieved something really great in one area of my life. And I think people listening to this are probably have achieved a lot in their life, and they know that, oh, because I've reached a peak, or because I've reached a high level in school, or, you know, some type of academic pursuit or curriculum, or even an extracurricular thing, because I've reached that pinnacle or a high pursuit, I know how to apply that in other areas of my life. And because I've reached an elite level of mind, I have supreme confidence, which allows me to expand into really any arena of life, knowing that I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I'm a big believer in self-reflection and creating your own standard of expectations, my friend, because, John, in the spirit of sharing, I'll share part of my personal story, my friend. So I started this podcast about 4 years ago because I wanted to find a better way to socially connect with people because I was born with cerebral palsy, and sometimes it's harder for me to get outside or go to networking events to connect with people. And I'm a huge believer in self-reflection because it brings us closer to ourselves and our own identity, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about your beliefs and the power of self-reflection and how important that is to you, my friend.
Yeah. Self-reflection, I think of, it's more like for me, it's like a contemplation. Um, as I think there's many ways to reflect and meditate on yourself and to hear the whispers of your soul, so to speak. That's the way I hear what you're saying. When I get quiet, I don't try to clear my mind. I don't try to do anything with my mind. I just try to relax my body. And and here's the distinction. Instead of me like searching or thinking about something and like getting lost in my mind, I try to allow something to come in. So like when I'm reflecting, I get downloads, I get inspiration, I feel my soul speaking to me. Not because I've forced my mind to be quiet, but I can hear the nudgings, and what excites me is what I know my soul is trying to speak through me. And so I love that you have grown to the point of self-reflection, because that's a huge skill that we don't have. People say meditate, and meditation can mean all kinds of things, but I like that you framed it as self-reflection, because when you get quiet and you don't try to think all the time and do all the time with your mind, you get divine downloads, you get nudgings, you get inspiration, you get creativity. And that's what allows you to expand and go to your next level. If you listen to it and you take action on that, that's a different story. But I can tell how that, like for you, I can feel that from you, Kevin, that's expanded your potential and your reach just by sitting in self-reflection and allowing stuff to come to you.
Yeah, it's important to know who you are before you reach anybody's other expectations of yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all trying to learn who we are, but I think that process, learning who you are, and I think you can agree with this, is not a process of adding traits to yourself. It's a process of removing and releasing all the shackles and all the trapped emotions and all the barriers that we put on ourselves, like in our mind, in our body, our emotions, because we've accumulated all this junk of emotions, suppressed energy, of, again, mental conditions and barriers. That getting to know yourself is about releasing and removing stuff, letting go of stuff, versus like adding courage and adding strength and adding whatever you want to your life, to your armor. That stuff is already inside of you. It's just been blocked and, trampled upon your whole life. That it's more of a process of releasing. It's more of a feminine process. Feminine not meaning girly. We all have masculine and feminine energies, but feminine meaning relax and let go so that we can get to know ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, what do you think it means for our minds to be in harmony? What does that mean to you?
I like the word harmony. I saw you talking about balance and harmony with me the other day, or, in the email that you sent. I like harmony better than balance, because I think balance means like people assume balance means 50-50. I need to balance everything 50-50 in my life, or 30-70, or like have some ratio. Well, harmony is about listening intuitively to what you need. So when I think of balancing your mind, I think of more in terms of harmonizing my mind with my soul. Because I'll be very honest, and this is controversial, I think we're over obsessed with our mind. I think, especially coming from anxiety and panic and being an achiever, we're obsessed with our mind. We're over dominant in our mind. The balance and the harmony is out of whack. And so we need to let go of our mind more, and because our mind causes all this suffering. Our mind's great, by the way. I achieved so much with my mind, but harmony to me means connecting to my soul and the inspiration and the creativity, and just being instead of doing all the time, and having a harmony of I'll give you an example. We all know when to eat, right? Our body tells us. Our stomach growls, right? We know when to sleep. We get tired, right? It's easy to tell. But mentally and emotionally, do we listen emotionally to what we need? Most of us are completely out of whack with our emotions. We try to just avoid them when they're feeling awful. We avoid everything. That puts us at a disharmony. So when you're feeling like crap, when you're feeling anxious or fearful, instead of pushing it away all the time, we need to lean into it and be with it. Much like we would if your child was screaming or in fear. You wouldn't push them away. You would embrace them and give them space and let them release that, process that out. We need to do the same thing for ourselves. And when you do that, you harmonize your mind, your body, and soul. You listen to it just like you would if you were hungry or thirsty. And we need to do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I know that you have a 3-step process for release, and you put the people that you work through a course in order to do that, my friend. So tell me all about it and how it works.
Yeah, so I have a program called Released. It's an 8-week process of tapping in and releasing these trapped emotions, because trapped emotions, suppressed emotions, are suppressed potential, right? Not only do they release anxiety and panic, but that's your potential you're tapping into. If you can crack that open, release it, you expand your potential. So I teach people how to do this. And there's a 3-step process. Number one, you need to have a fully regulated and upgraded nervous system. Because if you have anxiety or you're overwhelmed or you're having panic attacks, you're not regulated. You're dysregulated. Your nervous system is tense. Your body is tense. You're holding everything in. It can't function properly. So we have to learn how to relax 24/7, relax our bodies. And I teach that so that this voltage can move through us and process out. Number two is the unhooking method. So the unhooking method is, how do we unhook and release trapped emotions and suppressed emotions when they're happening? Not later in the day, not in a 30 minutes therapy session. How do we release it as it's happening? Get that stuff out of us. So I teach that, of how to relax, lean into that energy. And the hardest part, Kevin, of this process is staying out of your mind. People listening to this podcast are like, oh, I'm going to go try this at home. And they go back and try this later today, and they'll struggle because their mind will get in the way. Their mind will say, oh, am I doing it right? How long do I have to do this? Is this releasing it? I don't feel anything. I got stuff to do. Is this worth it? Like, your mind will go insane. So I teach people how to lean out of the mind to release this, because you can't process emotions through your mind. And then the third piece is called catalyst integration. So Kevin, you know, and the listeners know, we've all had moments in our life that are huge catalysts, huge events that traumatized us or, scarred us or wounded us, like breakups, betrayals, embarrassments, even moments we're unaware of that are trapped. These are the boulders inside of us. So catalyst integration, I show people how to find those boulders without digging, how to feel and process them out and integrate them without, again, digging through therapy mentally or like always looking for what's wrong, because these are moments that haunt us without us realizing it. How do we release and access those, fully process them out? So in that 3-step process, we're fully regulated, we're processing out emotions as they're happening through the day, and we're releasing all the big boulders of our life. And within a matter of days, weeks, or a couple months, there's a serious release and integration that happens where people can fully overcome a lot of the limitations that they currently are experiencing and learn how to expand more and more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I'm curious to ask you about your journey as an entrepreneur, because you say you've been an entrepreneur since 2012, and you've had at least 5 failed businesses, and you are meant to be someone to work in a cubicle for other people. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on your entrepreneurial journey and your thoughts on traditional employment and the importance of really finding what makes you happy professionally, no matter what path it takes you on. So I'm curious to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I did initially fail. Why did I fail 4 or 5 businesses? I asked myself that question, and the honest answer was it was me. Meaning, I was struggling and procrastinating. I wasn't taking the action I knew I needed to do, right? And I think that's relatable. I think we all understand that. I was feeling overwhelmed, like, what do I do next? What's the next step? And just wasting my time in busy work instead of taking the big actions. Why was that? Well, it wasn't because I didn't have the right strategy. Everyone who wants to start a business thinks they need a great strategy. And of course, that's great. You do need one. But ultimately, the reason people fail, businesses fail, is because of the person, the entrepreneur, because they're stuck in the bubble and the barriers of their subconscious, their programming, their limitations, which I've been talking about, is anxiety, overwhelm, procrastination, analysis paralysis. Those are all emotional root issues. And so the way I think about entrepreneurship is, people listening who have a dream in their heart, like if you're staying up late at night and you're dreaming about a life and a vision that you have, and you get excited, but then the next morning you wake up with dread and you procrastinate and you don't take action, that's an emotional root issue. And it has nothing to do with a strategy. The strategy is you need to take action, but why can't you? It's because of all these trapped emotions and suppressed energies that are limiting your expansion. And so the way I view entrepreneurship is that we need to up-level the human being, expand the human being, so that they can take the action and expand to levels and do the podcast and take the actions and get the clients, right? That's what will grow a business and bring forth your dream. And so I'm less about teaching people about the strategies they need and more about breaking free of the barriers and limitations that they have internally, emotionally, so that they can expand to their higher level, like it helped me. Because once I overcame all that, you can imagine if you're uninhibited and you're not afraid to take action and speak and market yourself, you're going to thrive. But if you are limited and always in fear of that and feeling in a bubble, you'll fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, with Father's Day coming up this weekend, I'm curious to ask you about uh, the harmony or balance that your children have brought to your life. I know that you're not a huge a fan of the word balance, and perhaps you can tell me why. But I'm curious, how do you think having children has sort of improved your life from a mental and emotional standpoint? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Ooh, this is a really fun question. I'll give an answer people won't expect is, like when you start a business, obviously you face a lot of fears and, vulnerabilities about yourself. You learn what you need to overcome. Well, for parents out there, kids will poke everything inside of you, meaning they're little mirrors to your soul. If something if you can't handle them screaming, crying, it's because there's something inside of you. It's an indication that something inside of you is limiting you. So again, going back to the suppressed emotions, they drove everything out of me. They brought everything to the surface out of me. That's what relationships are. Your relationship with your family, with your spouse, with your partner, with your kids, they will poke all of the stuff that's trapped inside of you so that you can confront it and expand. That's the way I view my kids is they are beautiful and born divinely without all this conditioning, right, projected onto them. Like they're born divine. And then they come to the world and we condition them and they get all this programming and clouding and static over their being so that they can operate in this world. But before we condition them, they're going to poke everything inside of us that needs to be seen for us to expand. So my kids have done that. My kids have been a mirror for me to see the parts of my soul that needed to be released and for me to expand. So I'm very grateful that I view them as my teachers. I don't always try to teach them things. I try to embody it. You and I spoke about this before we started recording is I don't sit there and lecture my kids about do this and learn that. I try to embody those qualities myself, meaning you can sit there and study a book and lecture kids all you want, but what they really need is leadership. Someone who is courageous, someone who is, will establish boundaries, someone who is grounded. And I want to be those things, not preach those things, if that makes sense. And the way that I did that is everything that they poked and prodded inside of me emotionally, I dealt with so that I could embody those qualities and better their life.
Yeah, and John, I know you're a girl dad, my friend. So tell me, what's the best part about being a girl dad and seeing the eyes of the world through your daughters, my friend?
Mm. Yeah, I was one of three boys, so I grew up around boys. So having three girls is quite interesting. I like to, boys are very like little cavemen. They're very active and physical, and girls are more cerebral. They're smarter than little boys initially, in general. They're very smart. They're very nurturing, which is fun. They always want to be close to each other, and boys want to go off and do their thing and dig in the ground and find lizards and stuff like that. So they've shown me and allowed me to bring forth my balance. Here's your balance. Harmonize my feminine energy with my masculine energy so that I'm more harmonized. So it's been a beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I've got a trio of questions left for you, and the first one has to do with You know, one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast, my friend, is I looked at the world and I said there has to be more that brings us together rather than brings us apart. And I wanted to create what I call more bridges of unity and understanding. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because I wanted your perspective on how we can sort of block out the societal noise of being conditioned on how to think and why to think a certain perspective or a certain way. So, how do you think we can block out societal conditioning to become our own people?
Wow, that's a wonderful question. Unity is a very important thing to me too. Um, Unconditional love is my word. I try to embody that. It's very hard as a human being, but it's something to strive for, and same with unity. So, what came to me, Kevin, is going back to your self reflection. I've had periods in my life where I needed mentors and I needed someone who had a stronger mindset than me and to like listen to podcasts and listen to experts. But over time, you actually have so many voices in your head. Oh, this person, this peak performer would do this, or Kevin the podcaster would do this in this scenario, and like you have, and he would say this, and that's great and all to take those perspectives. But if you're talking about the noise of society and the conditioning, the only way to hear your soul speak to you and your voice and your higher self is to get quiet and like maybe block all your social media, but like take moments of your day where you step away from all of that noise, because it's just noise. It's other people's voices and conditioning and programming, to be able to listen to what you truly want and desire, like truly. And that's hard to do because we always feel like someone knows the answer for us or that guide, or we rely on mentors and guides who are better than us. But in fact, if you self-reflect and if you get quiet, you will hear the nudgings of your soul, and your soul is more powerful than any voice out there, than any mentor out there, than any guide out there. You don't need to be, and in the, listening to that, in the process of that, you start relying less on the external voices of your parents, of the voice in your head, of the talking heads, of the mentors, the guides, and you start trusting yourself more and more. And I've done that at different periods of my life where I needed to listen to myself and not other people. And I think it takes a lot of courage, because we always feel like someone else knows better than us, when in fact, that conditioning will keep us trapped in the same patterns and the same limitations and capping our potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, from a mental health perspective, I'm curious to ask you about once you release on your show trip, once you release your anxiety and sort of your panic, my friend, how do you think that elevates or improves our mental health overall? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. There's a link between emotions and the mind, right? The thought, right? People try to like change their thoughts mentally when in fact, so here's an example, or just let me get more intimate here. Anxiety is our body's alarm. Of course, you have worst case scenario thoughts when you're in anxiety, like, oh my gosh, like, what if this happens? What if I send this email and this happens? What if I don't get the thing? What if whatever? What? That's the mind's reaction to the body. So what's really going on a deeper level is your body is sounding an alarm in your gut, in your chest, in your head. Viscerally, there's an energy inside of you that's starting that anxiety. That's the emotional root issue. So when you start feeling more of that energy, because it's intense, you won't want to do that. Like, it's so uncomfortable. When you start letting that energy wash over you, you start expanding because you're feeling safer and safer in that discomfort. Anxiety is just a label we give this energy. It's just energy. It's trying to communicate. It has intelligence, but we label it anxiety and bad. When you start leaning into that feeling, that emotion informs your body, informs your DNA, informs your nervous system. It gives it information that was suppressed and locked away. And because you gain that comfort and safety, in that feeling, you expand and your mind follows suit. Your mind will follow that. And because your body's not afraid anymore of waking up, because your body has memory. When you start feeling safe internally, your mind won't be in worst case scenarios because it follows the body all the time. So that's how the mind, that's why we treat it emotionally at the root versus battling it mentally. Because like if you're having a worst case scenario thought, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to send this email and someone's going to ask for a refund, and oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that or whatever. If you try to tell yourself, oh, even if that happens, you'll be okay. If you try to convince yourself logically, intellectually, it doesn't treat the root fear. It doesn't treat the root sensation. So you continue to experience hypervigilance and anxiety. So we want to go emotionally so that the mind follows.
Yeah, absolutely. And, John, I'm going to end with this, and I'm curious, as a high performance coach, my friend, what do you think it means to really optimize your legacy in life? What do you think that means to you, and how do you want your own legacy to be remembered from a personal and professional standpoint?
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, I love that I'm a 3-time U.S. memory champion because I think that grabs people's attention and they're like, ooh, he knows something. And that's true, I do. But ultimately, I don't want to really be known for anything like that. I want to be known for disrupting this idea of mental performance and mental health and flipping it on its head so people can go deeper and heal and fully overcome. Because if I can overcome all the mental barriers and emotional barriers that are limiting me, I can embody that and share that to the world. Can you imagine a world, Kevin, where people aren't shackled by all the stuff that bothers them and they're afraid of and all their limitations of subconscious beliefs that are limiting them? If they can overcome that, how much better would the world be if their hearts are open instead of living in their head and living in fear, right? That's an expansive world. That's that bridge to unity we talk about. Because if you heal yourself, if you open up your heart, that ripples out into the world. We have too many people living in their heads, right? They're obsessed with their minds, which I was too. I'm not trying to judge anyone. The mind's important, but if we stop over obsessing with our mind and we drop into our heart and heal all the stuff blocking us from feeling our way through life and expanding that way, can you imagine the world we would have? Can you imagine the unity and the expansiveness of potential and gifts that would bring forth to this world if people weren't afraid anymore? And that's the legacy that I want to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, if people want to get connected with all the good work that you do, John, how's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, that 8-week program, you can go to releasepanic.com. If you want a free guide, I recommend everyone start here. If you go to releasepanic.com/free, it's a free 12-minute video talking about this root emotional issue, that it's not a mental issue. And how, like, what are your first steps to unhook from this and to deal with this? So go to releasepanic.com/free to download that guide. But I'm also active on Instagram as well, at MemoryJohnG. I'm happy to take anyone's questions there if you want to reach out and follow me there.
Well, fantastic. Well, John, I really think you're really doing a great service to the world to help people get in touch with their mental, emotional, and spiritual self, my friend, through the work that you do, through mind memory and helping people really release their panic attack and anxiety, my friend. It's really transformational, the work you're doing, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning. It's most appreciated.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Kevin. I appreciate you asking the deeper questions for your audience to benefit from it, but it's my pleasure. Thank you.